Hello, everybody. Jule Salam, as suitable to all of you out there. Before I get on to what I have to speak about, I'd like to thank Fiazle for providing me this opportunity, the forum. I thought I would not be able to speak on education for a long time now, but anyhow, this came as a pleasant surprise. Not to forget, Sunit, I know you have a hand in that, so thank you so much. I'm loving being here because it's the talk about education. A little brief about myself. I have, accidentally stepped as a educator. I was never ever planning to be a teacher ever. It was like more fancy dreams of being an air hostess, being a dancer, or being even a cardiologist at some point of time. But then circumstances, and then I accidentally landed up in teaching. And here, after 2 decades of being a teacher, I can think of nothing more but being a teacher every day. So thank you. You really made me feel very good. It's back to old love again. I just want to connect to Abir first. Abir, of what you had talked about on your subject, it really ignited my interest. If at all I am to go back to education in lay, I would love to come back to you and, fish out the resources that is really relevant to time. So thank you, Abir. That was very beneficial. Mr. John, I connect to your conversation because, uh, out of the blue, I got to spend 1 year at Moravian Mission School. So that's nostalgia to me. And it was absolutely riveting when you walked us through the history of how Moravian, the school, the education system came up. So that's very wonderful. So that was a personal touch altogether. Thank you for that. And finally, I do not have a concrete documentation to provide the listeners with. I only have a simple experiential of 2 decades of being an educator. I started my journey. I hope all's well.
Yeah, please continue.
Sorry, Fazli. I started as a teacher at Islamia School in Leh, where I worked for 6 months. And from there onwards, it was, like hopping many stones. In fact, all schools over Leh for better prospects, exposure. And things finally changed for me when I was at the London Model School Senior Secondary. There, I got an opportunity and I worked as an English lecturer. And with Liu, I got an opportunity to introduce new kind of syllabi, new activities into the system. And thereon, I think with that platform, I was then invited to Drukpadma Karpo School, which is internationally known as the Druk White Lotus and very popular with the Indian people as ranchos. So there, I was elevated to the post of a principal, and that was where I understood that I really had a potential, because I was quite young to be a principal then, and at the same time, the people who hired me were very, very sure that I could make some changes. So the word changes, the term changes was already a very big expectation from me. So there, the whole journey of being a principal, a mother, an educator, a counselor, everything had to be, rolled into one whole bag. And here I was given the free hand opportunity to do whatever I could do with the new team that had been introduced to me. And again, here, when I wrote my mail to Fayaz Lay stating that these are the particular points that I'd like to touch, first was definitely the word revamp. And after having not been in school for now nearly 9 months, I feel now it really needs a revamp, because having worked in the education sector for 20 long years, I thought I was an old horse and I had my reins really tight. Now suddenly with the COVID situation, I feel, oh, it's really the time to revamp education system. Now, the things that we could do back at Drukpadma Karpo was, I had a very cooperative management. They had decided to invest their confidence and their trust on all of us as a team. So we decided to revamp. And that process was not very easy because it needed collaborate, you know, the tripolar coming together of parents, the students, and the team together who were, on the function. Well, nevertheless, the journey was wonderful. The few basic things we thought was, let's go to the ground and see what actually needs to be attended. So starting from the students, we realized that, in India, especially the backbenchers is like almost like a, bad feeling, a stigma. So we decided to remove that. And we started to explore this concept of think, pair, share, which came from a dear friend of mine who's in Santa Fe. He's a headmaster to a very successful school. So we decided to think pair share, where girls, boys sit together. They form a little group, and that group exists in the class itself. So rather than this teacher, constantly standing and delivering that monotonous lecture, the kids are given a particular chapter or a part of the lesson to be discussed, and that's how there's peer learning, there's inquiry. So that was a very big success within our school. Next was how to motivate the teachers. uh, uh, well, as being a teacher myself for the longest time, I've always realized that, be it any school, starting from Islamia to Moravian to KV to Mahabodhi to all the schools that I've been, all the Ladakhi teachers, for a very unexplained reason, were brought in, or trainers were brought in from other places to be training these Ladakhi teachers. And even in Druk too, we did that. I had this very good lady counselor, who was a motivational speaker. She came from uh, this Vadodara World School, and there, in one of those instances, when we were sitting down, we have a beautiful infrastructure at Druk. We were all warm and cozy. We were sitting down, and we had put this nice little sofa for this lady. And suddenly, in the middle of nowhere, I realized, my goodness, there's so much of a superior sitting and an inferior sitting. And there I realized that no, it's time to now revisit that area, and it should be reversed. So again, going back to my board, the members, I discussed that let's turn the tables this time and let's invest some money in sending our teachers to other schools and let them be respected for that. Again, as lucky as ever, there was only nod of consent. And the next thing we were doing was we were developing over our relationships with sister schools around India. So I was very fortunate with the connections that I had because of the spiritual leaders on the top, the name, fame of the Rancho School. It was very easier conduit to go across people and say, can you help us remodel? Can you help us have immersion programs? Can you help us redevelop curriculum? And so we had sister relations with this very renowned school in Delhi. It's called Sanskriti. Then we had Bluebells International. Then we had Mother International, so on and so forth. So they were the ones who helped us to take our teachers to their school. So we used to make badges of particular teachers, like 7 badges of the primary school teachers, then 7 badge of the middle, and 7 member badge of the senior. And every year we would invest at least a 5 to 6 lakhs on these exposures tours. And I have to tell you, it's not just bragging. We saw new people coming back to school, and we made sure that those good practices were now inbuilt into the school curriculum through practices. And that's where we would give them incentives that these are the good practices brought in from other schools. How do you inbuild this into your system through your, during your transmission of the chapter? And based on that, we used to incentivize them and certify them. So that was another good leap we were able to make as a team. Now, thirdly, confidence is a huge demand within Ladakhi, parents. Every time I would meet parents, they would say, we want our children to speak English, and English, the good English. So there was nothing beyond English, they just thought probably the means of communicating through English was the standard, to say that you are a well-educated person. So again, here, a couple of us from different schools, we got together and discussed now what we really need to do. So again, the whole problem was, how do the kids ever speak in English if they do not have teachers who encourage them? And let's not talk about encouraging. How do they do when they themselves do not have that, you know, good, strong place? So again, the whole grueling for English happened. We had lots of phonetic teachers coming in. We sent the teachers to different schools for phonics, for English speaking. So, it was a lot of exchange programs that was brought about in the school. And finally, after a year or two, it was really hard to believe that Bhutan's Ministry of Education, they approached us and they said, we're really liking this new mode of education system or whatever new practices that you have. Can we send our 7 principals to your school for an immersion program? So that brought a lot of course, how would I say, happiness, confidence, as well as a lot of pride. But at the same time, it's a huge pressure point because we understood that we really now had to keep going. So with that exchange program too, we decided to be very serious about what we are doing and sit on the table, and we started bringing in more changes. So we introduced a math lab, we introduced a music lab, which is very interesting. We had we have also had a art pottery room. So step by steps, we started bringing in small practices, and we realized that the children were very happy to school. Of course, there wasn't 100% happiness. Fair enough. It's exceptionals have to be there. That's how the challenges are. Now, coming back to the next point is, then the next thing was, again, we had inspectors coming out from all over the place. We had this very fine gentleman whose name was Mr. Thomas, and he used to visit us from Santa Fe, and he would every year, make class visits, personal one-to-one sitting with teachers, and he used to prepare an inspection report for me, and that was the way forward for me. So we had huge debates, teachers, with management, with parents, and that's how new developments could take place. So this was called the Professional Learning Committee, or the community, where all the teachers would come together, and we had particular days dedicated to sitting together and talking across subjects and saying what could be better, had we applied these methodologies. So it was a beautiful cross communication of different subjects with different teachers. Then is definitely the best part of school is how to introduce fun factors, let's say how to introduce or get in surprise elements. So what we did was, during one of my own exposure tour to Cambridge, London, where I went through a diploma certification, I was asked to bring the best practices from there. Well, I couldn't get, because it was another world altogether, except the teachers were so highly motivated. We introduce a surprise element to the school, especially in our senior segment, because it's really difficult sometimes to motivate the elder kids. So usually in a traditional setup, there's a teacher who sits in the class and or visits the class, and the children are there to take the lessons on. We decided to make a master's class wherein it goes in a reverse form. So the teacher is allotted a particular class for the whole year. So he or she is supposed to make it very inviting, very motivating. And in fact, a lot of these beautiful teaching aids of her interest for her class students. So the students then are rotating. So they do not get to station themselves for 5 to 6 hours in one particular chair and be a couch potato. Rather, the teacher stays in that class, and that becomes an English master's class or a Hindi master's class or a math master's class. So they preferred calling it the maths lab. So everybody had different names. So the kids would be rotating into their classes. This was such a refreshing practice in the school. Everybody loved it. And, somewhere we really have to understand it, like, how do you register them? They're not robots. So even if they found it, fair enough or good enough to just lose 5 minutes of the period, but come at least fresh for the rest of the 20 minutes, I think that was fair enough. So we noticed, particularly because I used to teach the 10th standard, their English. So they would be much fresher. They just thought they were visitors and they were going to sit for another 20 minutes with the teacher and move on. So lot of fresh air, and it somewhere helped the teachers to also own that class and the property. There was less damage. Secondly, the kids, they just thought this was the coolest thing in a school. So a lot of times we have to think of refreshing things back at school. Big companies, they think, oh, let's redo this advertisement up, let's redo the house, let's refurbish. What about education? So today the kids are different. They're very different. They're very demanding, they're very intelligent, and they are equally very smart. So that's how I suggest a lot of schools have to introduce special elements to the school. Let it be some breakage of rule, doesn't matter. And then next is, again, like Abhi said, education is very generic. Well, Leh is no short of that, more worse than any other place. Every school in Leh offers everything same. What's the difference? The fee structure and probably the infrastructure. Then how do you become different? Here too, I think now schools should have the autonomy, and schools should be confident enough to take up their special subjects that they want to offer. So even if at all it's a long journey, we have to struggle a lot. I think, like Abhi said, we should have special programs which are related to indigenous interest and native knowledge. So I'm very much for it. We had a couple of interesting things. We introduced Damyan back to Drukpadma, which really became a popular thing. And the kids, they formed their own band. They called it the Pecker Band. And so the three-string traditional, music instrument we introduced at school, and that really did pretty well. And when I remember one of the ambassadors, it was Mr. Justin from the American Embassy, when he saw the kids playing those three-string instrument, he said, this is complete education. So I don't know what is the standard of education to make it complete, but yes, it was going back to a traditional roots, and the children were really very happy. Initially, oh no, the guitar was their first preference. They just thought it was very uncool to hold a three-string and look like, one old personality. But then with them getting staged, with them getting televised, and with them getting to perform during very special occasions, I thought they really picked up. So again, a fresh element, and again, a nice way of unknowingly or just undeclaringly introducing, things back at school. Apart from them, that I think the best practices from all over the world, we cannot stick to, we just can't stick to one certain thing. Times are changing, and as I said, even now, or when I talk to people around, we were recently talking to what you can call a media house. They were asking what are the challenge in the present COVID times. I thought it was completely challenging. I haven't been teaching now for a year, but I could see the struggle the kids, the parents, and the teachers have. So I think with this situation given in hand, and also let us treat this as a blessing in disguise. And this is the right time for all people out there who are connected to education, who want to do something. This is the time where we can really take education system a way forward, a step up, even if it's in the form of digitalization. And there we require intensely good training for teachers. They need to be oriented, they need to be strengthened in this field. And I think that itself will be a contribution there. Now, coming back to best practices is, whenever we were let out from school and we were funded with really good opportunities to go out and bring the best practices. Well, again, Mr. John, I'd like to connect to you here. I was in Singapore for almost a half a month and had the great privilege of meeting this dynamic lady who was leading Hao Chong Nanyang's girls high school. So I was shadowing her for almost 2 weeks, and I was asked to get back best practices. Here too, everything was out of your ambit. We couldn't get the infrastructure they had. It was too posh. The only thing that I got back was very interesting. So again, Ladakhi schools, they are schools, but they're not very sure what they really want. So there's no vision around it. For the longest time, I struggled in Druk because I had grazing cows in the class or even the school. So kids would constantly chewing the chewing gum and this just looking so rowdy. Now, when I went back to Singapore and I was in that school, I during one of my tours around the city, I happened to know that Singapore banned its chewing gum industry for the good of the public. And then I had a conversation with our what you call our chairman, who is a spiritual head, and I said, "Isn't this the best practice we can take back to at least to our school, and probably it can onwards and then be spread." So we decided to have a morning assembly where I was going to talk to my kids about the morning, my Singapore experience, and in a very dramatic way, I told, "Do you know?" So much and so much money was spent on me, and today what I got for you people is such an interesting news where Singapore government and the people being so conscious of how to keep the city clean, and of course, and to be looking very, very how would I say, to have etiquettes and to be minding your P's and Q's in the public, have banned chewing gums from the country and especially from the schools. So for a moment, the kids were like, is that all she got? But slowly and steadily, keeping Singapore in mind and telling the children, I have to put this practice into school because people have paid for my travel and I have nothing more to get except this. It really helped us all. So parents came to school and they were like, this is a very good step towards, getting the children off the chewing gum practices. So likewise, best practices from all the world, be it just a simple change like master's class, be it just a simple change like allow the kids to do what they just give them a slack someday, just give them a slack someday. And most of all is the connection between the teachers and the kids. So at Druk, we sometimes had, like suppose it's just a normal day and people look low in energy, they look slackened. We would just play on the audio randomly and a song would come. So let's say we would normally play the Three Idiots song because that was so really connecting. And all the teachers and the kids would, wherever they be, they would start doing their funny dance moves or just jump or whatever makes them feel good. And within 10 minutes, the whole school was back to energy. Uh, I think I'm not left with much time. So my again, if at all we are to revamp, we need to visit the education policies. We need to revisit places where we are giving equal opportunities and empowerment to the teachers. We need to understand what kids really need in this time, and we really need to understand that this is a point of time where kids cannot be swamped just with academic textual books. They need emotional education, they need skillful education, and they really need moral education in times now. So I think I would like to stop on this and save time because that's making me very conscious. Thank you, everybody.